Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of the Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Ike Eisenmann and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with Ike Eisenmann, and today we are thrilled to welcome a producer of several films, star of some of the most famous films of the 80s, such as Last American Virgin, Better Off Dead, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and author of the film-inspired memoir, The Excellent Adventures of the Last American French Exchange Babe of the 80s, and its two follow-ups, and a fellow New Yorker. Please help us welcome Diane Franklin. Diane, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me on this show. I just love nostalgia and retro shows, so I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. I'm the retro in this equation, so I'm so glad to know you like that.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I mean, it's so, I think, the fans, people who love nostalgia, you want to go back to the days when you were growing up and just sort of have a break and just go, wow, remember that? And so I'm very happy if I can help with that.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, we have a lot to cover, but I want to start, like I mentioned in the intro. So you grew up in New York. Where did you grow up?
Plainview, Long Island, which is about 45 minutes from New York on the LIRR. You can tell I'm back east, or at least I don't know if they still call it that.
They do.
Okay, good. And I grew up in lower middle class family. My parents were not in the entertainment business. They were immigrant parents, and they were, but I was the one who always wanted to be in television or film. I mean, literally at 4 years old, like I really did. And my parents were like, what is this? We do this. What is this child? Why does she want to do this? But my parents were like older, like my mom had me when she was like 40 and my dad was like 45 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of like, I think they just ran out of energy and they just were like, okay, let's just do it. Right.
Well, how old were? Well, just real quickly, how old were you when you really did realize this was something you wanted to do?
Well, I knew at 4. I was watching TV, and I remember a show called That Girl, and that Marla Thomas, she was an actress on the show, and I was like, I want to be that girl. I want to be like her. Like, it was kind of funny. And we went, I think they took me to an agency when I was that age, and they were like, no, her hair is too short and curly. Wait till it grows out, because everything was very straight hair. And so, but I didn't professionally act until I was the old age of 10. 10. Yeah, right. So 10 years old. And so I started, no many connections or anything. My parents, we found an agency, I guess, that did modeling. I started with modeling for a couple of years, and then I wasn't growing. And so then I moved on to commercials and voiceover and theater. And I went to a public school the whole time. I went to Plainview Old Bethpage High School. Woo, hello, everyone who went there. And I love that school. But the people at the school had no idea what to do with me in terms of when, going on auditions. That wasn't a thing. That in the late, that was the 70s. People didn't usually go on auditions back east in a public school. And so they kind of were like, you're leaving to do a movie, like, or you're going to do a soap opera. Like, they had no idea that what to do in a way. And I would be like, I have to go. Like, I'd leave school early, and a few hours earlier, like, I don't know, something like that. My mom would be picking me up, and they'd be like, where are you going? You're like in middle school. And I'm like, I have an audition. And I'm like, don't talk about it. You don't talk about it when you're a kid, you got to stay really low on that, so, because kids, people get mean and jealous, and I don't know, like, as a kid, you don't even conceive it. They get mean and jealous no matter what. But anyway, So there.
So this is something that you pushed for. I mean, this, because we've had other people on that they say, like, you know, they didn't really have a choice, that their parents kind of like pushed them into this, but this was you. This was, you wanted to do this.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I think I can see that because I teach acting too, and I can always tell, like, certainly there's parents who want their kids to do it. It's interesting. I was just watching the Brooke Shields documentary, and that was really like my childhood. Like, what she in that first section, like I did stuff with Brooke, and we all did modeling and acting and commercials, and together, like, we saw each other, and so it brought back such memories. And it was interesting because she's one of the few actresses that, like, there's kids who are they're just stunning, or they're just like they just have it, and the parents go, oh, okay, like, we have this child gets sort of discovered, and those kids are driven by the immediate, like, you see them and you go, wow, like, they should be in television or film. And a lot of times those kids were not behind it, right? Like, they didn't, like, they were like, oh, I'm just sort of caught in this tornado of interest, and by the way, like, a lot of times parents jump into that because they know, like, that could be a moment in time, where that kid gets an opportunity, and it doesn't wait for you, like, success doesn't wait. You have to take opportunity when it's given to you. So for me, like, for when I saw that thing with Brooke, the interesting part of her documentary, and I know her, like, I remember her, is that she loved it. She wasn't pushed in it, but her mother and she had such a tight relationship, and so that was kind of intertwined in it. But she wasn't somebody who was resistant, and sometimes I see kids who are resistant. Obviously they shouldn't be doing it, but with Brooke, it was an interesting combination. She had the gifts, but she also had and she had the beauty, and she had the, she still has it. I'm not saying had, but I just remember at that time, it's just fascinating. She was one of the few kids that I knew that was had an innocence that I could relate to. Her innocence was definitely, and her just her attitude and her personality was something I could relate to. So anyway, yes, I was very interested in acting, and I loved acting, and it was not for the money, and it was not for being a star. I wasn't like about like being in the limelight. I'm actually a very shy person, strangely. I'm very verbose, but I learned that as I got older. But I used to be shy. I wouldn't talk at all. Like, I was really, in certain respects, very shy. But I really tried to go out of my comfort zone. And that's why I do podcasts now, because I really try to push myself in areas that I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable. But I think it's important to speak out and say, do things and tell people, of my experiences, my life, because my main goal is to help others, really. So, and when you're talking about, like, did I want to act? Yeah, like, I wanted to. I didn't know how I was going to do it, and my parents helped me, and they didn't know how, but that is one of the things I have to say. I just loved performing and playing different roles to this day. To this day.
Well, given all that, and your first film was The Last American Virgin. So how did all of that come about for you, given all these dynamics?
Yeah. So I had been working for 9 years, literally from 10 years old to, 19. I think that's when I did Virgin, maybe. 19. And so, I had gone for so many auditions. Some of them I got, but I hadn't gotten a film yet. And I did a soap opera. I had done, theater. I was at the McCarter Theater with Jo Beth Williams, and I went for movies. Like, I remember auditioning for The Exorcist, and I was a little kid then. Freaky Friday, I think, before. There was so many films, and I had not broken through. And so when I got the audition for The Last American Virgin, there was a couple of things going on. First of all, obviously, I wanted to break through, and I didn't know how to do that, but you just keep auditioning. That's part of the process, is that you as an actor, your job is to perform, but you don't have any control if you're going to be right for the part or chosen. So it's kind of like a numbers game. The more you go, the better chance you have of getting work. So of course, and I don't know if you read my first book. I have 3 books. And if you are interested, my first book talks about how do you go from not having any connections in the entertainment business to making it and being a movie star? How does that even happen? So I have a first book. It's called Excellent Adventures, blah, 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 right? Same title. And that book talks about how I broke in. And the funny part was I was going to NYU at the time. I always thought it was important to get education. I really thought part of being, and again, my parents were immigrants, so part of being an American to me was having an American experience and going to college. And my parents did not have money. I saved my money to go to college. And I tried to get the best grades I could because I really wanted to have an American experience, which was part of that was knowing like I wanted to see what college was like. And I love college. I mean, I love learning. So that to me kind of all went together. In fact, I went back to school and I got my BA and all that. So that's later, but I wound up going to NYU. And when I got to NYU, I had an audition, just like any other, and it was The Last American Virgin, but it was the day of my chemistry midterm. And I was like, look, I'm paying for school, like the parent, the parent says, you're going to school, you better finish your education. So here I am going, I'm paying for school, so I'm not going for this audition. I've got to take this. I got to take my midterm, blah, blah, blah. And I had not known, like when you go to school, sometimes it's in classes, but this one, the chemistry class was taught in a big hall. It was like, I don't know, like how they refer to it, but it's like a big classroom with a lot of people. And so what was it? Lecture hall. Yes. Thank you very much. I could not find the words. So it was a lecture hall class. I'd never taken one before. So like how to study for it, I had the wrong impression. I mean, I just did not, but I tried to study. And so I told my manager, I'm not going, nope, saying no, which I did very rarely. I mean, I really did. I tried to go for everything. But then when you got the title, The Last American Virgin, and I'm like, I think my chemistry exam is going to be more important than doing this movie audition. So, and she's like, listen, if you change your mind, here's the address. They're going to be here till whatever, 1 o'clock or whatever. So I go to school. I go to take the test. I look at the exam and I say to myself, as I look at it, I have a better chance of getting a lead in a feature film than I do passing this test. Which, right? Like how many people have thought that? Like, yeah. So I like mark it up and then I just throw it at the person who's like taking the test and I'm like off and I get in, I'm 19. I'm like, taking the subway and running up the street and like I'm bolting to this hotel for this audition. And I get there and as I remember, I don't even know if I got up to the audition, but the people who were auditioning were coming down and like, I don't know, they saw me and they were like, it was Yoram and Golem, the Golem and Globus brothers. And I met them and I said, they were like, oh, we really want you to, meet the director. He's left already. And, but here's the sides. And they were looking at me and I don't even know if they had me read. I'm not even sure, but I do know that they said, we're going to want you to fly to LA. We're going to fly you to LA like next week. And I'm in school. And those of you who have been to college know what that means. That means like, what? I'm going to Los Angeles. And I had been in the entertainment business long enough to know you got to jump and you have to take it. But on the other hand, I was still obviously a young girl and going, I'm flying to Los Angeles next week for a lead in a film. And when I read the script, and I did read the script, I thought the film was obviously, a teen sex comedy. And there were parts of it that I was, going to be experiencing that I had not done before. But the end is what got me. And the end of that film, and I'm not going to do a spoiler, but it went from being this campy sex romp to a real movie, to something that was real. And I remember thinking, I am going to be able to make this movie rock. Like, I knew in my heart, like, okay, I can make this movie something special with my acting. So I knew that it was sort of, and you know, look, I had no choice. I mean, I didn't know, meaning I didn't know if I was going to be hired or not, you know, but I flew to LA by myself,
Wow.
get there, screen test with the guys and with Lawrence and Steve Anton. And within, you know, like an hour, they said, okay, you got the part.
Wow.
And we're going to start. Let's do dress rehearsal. Let's do wardrobe. So, and I knew that, like, they said to me, either if you get this film, you're going to have to stay. And I stayed for a month and shot the film. Isn't that wild?
That is crazy. That is really amazing. I mean, you know,
and think of you if you would let your daughter do that too. like, I mean, I had so many years of experience. By then, my parents were like, oh no, I really was mature, being able to help, you know, handle the pressure, the travel. But I think in terms of my daughter, like,
sure.
Whoa, 19 is young. Like, that's young, right? Right.
Yeah.
So we all go, whoa. You know, it's good for the guys, I guess, right? But
had you seen the Israeli original?
I've seen pieces of it. I haven't seen the whole thing, but I will say that I remember Boaz Davidson, the director, he said to me, you know, I want you to see some of the footage. And he wanted to show me like the angles of things. And he wanted to show me I remember there was one scene where he said, this is what I need from you. And so he showed me, it was I think it was going into the grandmother's house, and I was very upset. And they literally shot for shot did Lemon Popsicle, which honestly, I mean, for those of you who are into cinema, that in itself is an amazing thing, because I don't know any other film that's ever done that. Like, Lemon Popsicle takes place in the 1950s, and Last American Virgin takes place in the 1980s, and it's shot for shot. And I think that it's just so cool. I just think it's really, really cool.
That's amazing. But do you remember anyone else who also screen tested for the role?
Well, at the time, they were still screen testing Lawrence, and they had some other guys there. I don't remember. I did screen test with another guy, but I don't remember who it was now. Could have been someone famous. I don't know. I was still in my own world. Like, what? I was trying to remember my own lines and what was going on. Steve Anton, I think Steve was already cast. I don't know. I think so. I think he was already cast. And then Joe Rubo I met there too, but Joe wasn't in the scenes that I was screen testing with.
But were there any, did you see any other actresses there that were up for your role?
Good question. So there was another thing. I didn't see any other actresses, I think, but I did know that there was a headshot on the wall of another actress, and that was Christian Alfonso. And Christian Alfonso was from New York also. And I guess that originally Last American Virgin was supposed to be cast with her because they did a poster with her.
Oh, wow.
And
amazing.
So they were, I think, all planning to do it with her. And she got a soap opera. And they said, oh, well, I think, you know, maybe they were originally thinking about her for the role. And she turned it down to do this soap opera, which she did for basically the rest of her life. Like, that job was her, was it. So it's interesting because she chose that world. And another thing about that soap opera was it was, you know, she could live in New York. And so that was very cool for her. And I always thought she was stunning. She's a beautiful young woman, So I was kind of complimented, but they didn't come across and say, well, you know, you're next. But maybe that is why they wanted that dark look, you know, because of Kristen. So
I'm curious, I mean, you had done other things already at this point, but you've not been in a movie, and the whole cast at that point was so relatively inexperienced. Were there a lot of nerves coming in? I mean, for you and for everyone around, just now suddenly being in a movie?
Steve Anton, who played Rick, was our leader because he had worked with Jodie Foster. So he was like, it was like the leader. He was like, he's the pro. He knows what it's like, So he was guiding all of us. I mean, it was so funny. Like, and he is super cute and super nice and like super fun. Like, he was so nice to everyone. Like, he's like the opposite of playing a jerk. He was a good guy. And we all leaned on him. What do we do here? He's like, don't worry, it's going to be fine. And Kimmy Robertson, it was her film, also her first film as well. So yeah, we were all newbies.
Yeah.
I mean, I had done this soap opera, so I knew how to work with the camera, but and then Boaz Davidson, the writer-director, was such a great guy. He was so nice. And another thing is, not everybody writes and directs their own material. And in indie films, you have a real, a gift of being able to work with people who write their own material and then they direct it in the way that they see it. So I love working with writer-directors because it makes them, stand out. Their material stands out because they really get what they want. And Boaz was, since he had already basically directed the film before in Lemon Popsicle, he knew what he wanted. And that's a very big thing. We as actors didn't have to make up stuff that we didn't know what to do. He wasn't asking us to improvise. He was asking us to do what his vision was. So that worked out really well. I knew that for me, though, the biggest thing was we all, Joe Rubo, Lawrence, Steve, Kimmy, we all came to him and said, okay, you're going to change this ending, right? Like, that's not an American ending, right? Like, no. And he was like, no, Diane, that is not it, that is not my story. This is a true story. It is based on my life. And I don't, I want it to be this certain, this way. It will not change. And I look back now and think of how many people have said this to him. Do you know what I mean? I mean, from the beginning of his life. I mean, seriously, like, I'm sure that from the beginning of him making this film, like Lemon Popsicle, people have always said, well, you're going to change the ending, right? So he's been so patient and so nice with everyone, saying, no, that's not going to be the way.
Well, this film was in the first wave of the 80s teen sex comedies, and I think it was the next big one after Porky's, and the tones of the two films could not be more different. When you were making it, what were your thoughts? Did you think that at all that it was going to be as popular as it was?
No, not at all. First of all, I always thought, will people even see it? Because a lot of films during that time in the early 80s, late 70s were made and didn't even make it to the theater. So that was the first thought. Like, I don't even know if this is going to make it. The second thing was, I didn't even know about Porky's. I knew about Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and Last American Virgin was the first film to be made. But we knew when we were shooting it that Fast Times was being made a little bit later. Like, we were competing to get out.
We're gonna ask
and
about that.
I didn't know any.
Yeah.
It was like, who's going to get out first? Virgin got out like just a little bit before. But again, Virgin's audience. I mean, that film was more of that was a European story. It caught people's attention because it said American, but it didn't have that happy ending. Mm-hmm. And yet at the same time, so Fast Times and Virgin were very similar, although I think Fast Times was made more for an American audience, and it also had the backing. I feel like it was much more of a commercial film. Maybe I think probably was made by a studio, so it had that backing. And Virgin was a serious indie. Like, that was there were no rules. I mean, as far as, like, it was guerrilla shooting when we shot that film. They flew me to LA, and all of a sudden I'm like, they're driving me to this location. I have no idea where we are, and I know that they're like trying to do it within a certain amount of time, like, It's like, okay, we got to shoot this, the lights up, and let's make this happen because we got to get out of here. So I don't even know if they had location rights. I mean, it was kind of like much more, and go, Very funny.
What are some of your memories of making that movie?
Oh my gosh. Well, when you're, I really love, you asked me about like, were people nervous? And first of all, I just loved the cast, and I felt we really bonded because we were all newbies basically, and we weren't competing for, anyone's going to be the star. And I think that's really important when you do a film, is that you got to be a team. You got to work together. You can't be competing. And I'm sure that happens, where people go like, well, I need my screen time or whatever. We were just kids, and, and we're like, we were into it. And I think that, and we became really, really good friends, even to this day. Like I still hang out, I talk to Steve. We've been trying to get together. I've seen Lawrence and multiple conventions and screenings and Q&As. And Kimmy and I are dear friends. We've seen each other forever. And Joe, I still, see him occasionally at events, or, we talk on the internet. So that group has stayed. I even saw Boaz's daughter at a recently a screening. She is a filmmaker as well. So she was talking about how it was, with her dad, and, how her life was influenced by growing up, knowing him doing Virgin. So that is irreplaceable. Like that movie will always have a very deep meaning to me, really a deep meaning. But favorite scenes, I will say this, the pop the cherry scene, okay? The scene in the, when Steve is, taking my virginity. I have to say that scene was definitely, I didn't know how they were going to shoot it. And so I had to trust Boaz. And I was nervous, as anyone would be. But at the same time, because I trusted him and I had been working for so long, I knew if anything got weird, that I'd be able to catch it, like I'd be able to do something, but I was very confident about doing that scene in certain ways. And I thought, again, like Steve was super nice and they had a closed set, but it was a very loving and beautiful scene. And I always thought, okay, like this is kind of a cool thing to show, that sometimes so much of teen sex is violent, or like not really, it's like dumb. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, like, okay, let's go. Just kind of awkward. And I thought, oh, that scene's going to be, I don't know. It just was a different feel. I had a different take on it. So, and Boaz was great. He was very wonderful, and it was a closed set. So, so those are the interesting things about it. If you want more detail, go read my book. Okay. My book.
Fair enough on that point. But so despite your concerns, the film does come out. So how does your life change?
Oh, interesting. So, okay, even before the film came out, that year, all of a sudden I'm in Variety. All of a sudden I go from no publicity to being everywhere, like, and word of mouth, like people going, oh, this film, like, all of a sudden I got opportunities to audition for things I never thought I would. ABC, CBS, NBC were contacting my manager and my agent and saying, we want you to audition. And gosh, it changed my life even before the film came out, because I think what happened was they saw me as a lead. I suddenly got the ability to play a lead character. They knew I can handle it. And it was the beginning of the 80s, and I had this hair that was so different than anybody. And so they kind of knew, like, there was something new in a new decade, new look. Who is this girl who came out of nowhere? I didn't have connections. And so all of a sudden I got opportunity for so many projects. I auditioned for, oh my gosh, Flashdance and Karate Kid and there were so many bachelor parties, strangely, and then Amadeus. I mean, there was a lot of different I got auditioned for, but even like or screen testing that I got very close on. So things moved very quickly. Once the film came out, I was surprised that it did so well. I almost didn't believe it. I was like, oh, these numbers, somebody's making them up because who could be, this is a little film. This is a tiny, how could people be seeing it? And it was like #1 for a few weeks in Variety. I was shocked. And it got terrible reviews. Oh, and with good reason. It was the first sex teen comedy. The world wasn't used to even films being about teens with teens in it. Like the world was kind of doing a little, probably a Pretty Baby thing, going, why are teenagers playing teenagers? They've always been played by people in their 20s, So it got a lot of flack, but at the same time, it was, I don't know, I think it kept it alive. And the funny thing was, I remember thinking, this film it wasn't trying to be a cookie cutter film. It was trying to be real life. And I always felt it educated people. So I was like, well, people are going to learn, but we didn't have the internet then. So I didn't get the crazy fans. Like I didn't get people, bombarding me or going, hey, how's it going? Like I didn't, because we didn't have the internet. So I didn't have that. I didn't realize how much it affected people. I didn't know how many people actually saw it. So it wasn't until years later where people went and said to me, like even at conventions, Diane, this film influenced my life. Like Diane, I met a girl like you. Diane, that same thing happened to me. And that was a very beautiful kind of like, wow, like I could really appreciate it now. Like I hear people and I go, wow, thank you. Or if they say they had a crush on me, I go, well, thank you. But at that time, I probably would have felt like, oh no, don't come near me, I'm scared. But now I go, I appreciate that. That's really nice.
On that same, like, I've heard you talk about this, and you alluded to it before there too, that people got angry with you about the ending of the movie. Like during the film, you were like everyone's crush, and then by the end, it's like, how could you? So, but I think, you said, I think that's what makes it stand out. You said that you got that reading the script, that it's still so remembered today. I mean, do you think that that's what sets it apart from the other films at the time still?
Oh yeah, that ending is what kept it alive. If it was a cookie cutter kind of thing, there would be no reason, I think, people to watch it. And also, any person who's seen Virgin says to their friends, you got to see this film. You got it, because they want to watch their reaction. They want to watch that moment when they go, because at the beginning of the film, you're open, you're free, you're joking, you're like, ha, whatever, like, it's all good. And then by the end, you're devastated, I always think like, the sex lures you in, and then the ending it makes you think. And I think it stays with people. And when I even saw it later on in life, even I was like, oh my gosh, look at me. I'm horrible. I am a biatch, because you don't see it coming. You really don't see that. I play it so different than a lot of actresses probably would have, in a sense, like, you do not see one moment of, I don't want him to be with her. And I think that is what makes it stand out as well. It's you don't have a moment where you go, yeah, I'm glad he wasn't with her. She was, you see that, this girl is an innocent person who is, there's like so many girls that I really wanted to represent the girls who don't have a center yet. They don't know who they are. If you're nice to me, then I'm fine. Then I turn to you, you're nice to me. And so they don't know who they are. And that is real. There's girls who do not know who they are, but if you're nice to them, then they just go with that. So, or they, I mean, look, that decision at the end when she goes back to him based on, having had an abortion with him, he wooed her. He's, he took control, and she was a passive person, and she just, like a feather in the wind, went, okay. And then did Gary stand up for her in the end? No. Gary, you walked away. Like, you could have fought for her, right? But
well, I watched it again this past week, and it's still devastating.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it. I would have chosen Gary. I'm sorry.
Well, you obviously mentioned Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which came out very, very shortly after Last American Virgin, and it had similar themes. And you've mentioned that, but do you remember your thoughts at the time? Were you shocked at how similar some of them were? And was there some, because the one production knew about the other, did they know what the themes were and kind of perhaps lifted them for Fast Times? Or I guess not, because it was Fast Times was based on a book that had its own story. So what were your thoughts about that?
Well, it's interesting because they both had abortion scenes, which was not a thing. It was not a thing at all. I don't ever even remember. I mean, if there was any sort of situation like that, it wasn't certainly shown. And, Jennifer Jason Leigh, when she plays that part, this is where it gets really interesting. When Jennifer Jason Leigh has the abortion in that scene, she plays it real. Like, there's no, there's no glamour to it. It's very flat. The director made sure that scene was played very, like, it's just another day, and this happens everywhere, and it just happens, right? Virgin plays it, that I have to say, the one thing that was not real, I wake up from the abortion, and it's like this beauty shot, and it's like, the angels come in, and he comes in with the oranges, and and it's sort of like this kind of like, everything's okay, in the end. That was very different. Although the actual up to the abortion, I tried to play it very real, because I thought, obviously a young girl is not, this is absolutely traumatic, so I played that. But when the end, when they do the waking up from it, that was a point on Fast Times. I'm sorry, point on Fast Times for doing it in a more realistic fashion, so. But, it's perspective. The Virgin was from the perspective of the guy,
right.
And Fast Times was from the perspective of the girl. So that's another interesting part, I think they're both great films. And my BFF, Amanda Wyss, was in Fast Times. And we did Better Off Dead together. So fantastic.
Well, we do want to talk about Better Off Dead, which you started with John Cusack. I was such a large, still has such a large cult following. I also watched that again, and it really is a wonderfully bizarre film. I read that it's your favorite film to do. Is that accurate?
Yes, I'd have to say that was my favorite film. That was, I love Virgin, and I have a lot of love for my films, but to do it, oh my gosh, that was like the dream film. Hilarious. Everyone was so nice. I felt so fortunate to get the part of Monique, because I just knew how to play her. I just loved the character, and I was so grateful. Sometimes you go in as an actor and you have an idea of a character and it's your version, but it's not the director's. And it always comes out to the person whose vision it is. And I was so grateful that Savage Steve Holland saw me as Monique. Like, he allowed that, because originally I went in for Beth, and I don't know, he was just, I think, another role. He did not see me as, he didn't have me come in as Monique. I came in as Monique because I played a French girl in a film right before that. And so I was very confident of my French dialect. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to tell them that they need to hire me as Monique, because this is who I am, and I can do this. So
Oh my God, that's fantastic. Well, I mean,
Well, that's what they did. They laughed too.
yeah. Well, I have no doubt. You know, it's sometimes it's like, you know, I have, of course, I grew up in the business myself, and there's all kinds of different auditioning processes where sometimes you got to walk in that way. Otherwise, if you walk in as yourself, say yourself, and they suddenly can't see what they need to see if you turn it on and off. So that's brilliant. So how did you get involved with it? Was it just another audition? Were you called in specifically, or?
It was just, well, I was just coming back. I think I came back. I was just coming back from the film Second Time Lucky, where I was in New Zealand. I came back, I got the script. And I have to say that one of the most wonderful things about that script was we look at the film and go, that was hilarious and weird. When I got the script, okay, first of all, there's animation, claymation. I don't know if that word's copyrighted or whatever, but clay work. There's the comedy is so friendly and innocent and genuinely funny and relatable, but it was not common. It was like a live action cartoon. So when I read it, I remember thinking, this is outstanding. Like, where's the the gratuitous, nudity or bad language, or like, where's the violence? None of that was in the film. And I remember reading it going, oh my gosh, like, I've never seen a film like that as a movie. They might have done it for television, but they weren't doing it for films. So that is a very unusual moment I had, where I was like, that's what I want to be in this film. I'm a wholesome person, but I'm not a snobby or snotty, or I don't have attitude on things. So to me, like, I looked at that film and I went, I would watch that film if I was just, even if I don't get this film, I'm going to watch this film, which was what my attitude was. And that just is what really gave me the strong desire to go in as Monique. I mean, I think I walked into the room as regular. Oh, I know what happened. Okay. This was really funny. So I go into the waiting room, and Savage Steve Holland, I'm supposed to meet him. All right. So I go in the waiting room, and there's this guy there, and I'm like, oh, do you know if the meeting is over in this room? And he's like, yeah. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm like really excited. I really want to go in for this part, and, is there do you know where the restroom is, or bathroom? I don't know, something like that. And he's like, oh, it's over there, or, here's some water or something like that. And I'm like, oh, Diane, they want to see you. And I go into the room, and it's Savage. Like, I've been talking to Savage.
Yeah. Of course.
Of course. Okay. He is the guy. So he got to see me as me. And then as we go through, and then so he got to see me. And so I said, obviously, what part? I assumed that, I was going to get a chance to audition. They really didn't. And I said, that's when I went into the dialogue. So he got to see me as me, but I was so committed. And I knew it's just, I would say this, when you have a part that you love, just, don't play games with the cast. Go in, do your slide, whatever, but then just love that character so much and just be it. And it doesn't matter what the result is, just be it and because it's the one time that character will be your version, and at least let them see it. And so, but it was very funny. They didn't. I Savage before, yeah.
The film has so many fans, and it's, like I said, it's just a wonderfully bizarre movie. But all the people who love this movie have this one story going around that Cusack hated the film when it came out. Do you remember any of the reasons why to that?
Okay, I was there when he walked out. All right, and first of all, I was there. He's the cutest guy. I mean, okay, John was super. He is super sweet, cute, adorable. We had a great time working. I have to say, to me, I was so fortunate to work with him on that film, because he does a lot of serious films. So to me, like, I got to see John the sweetness of John, you know. He was romantic and lovely. So we did the film, and the audience, we were all so excited. I can't even begin to tell you. The place was packed and people were laughing out loud at the credits. And he just walked out. And we all thought, oh, I guess maybe he has to go to the bathroom, because he really walked fast. We were like, okay, well, maybe, you know. And then I don't know if Savage went after him or whatever later. I'm not sure what happened. I just remember then we watched the film and he didn't come back. And so Savage and they had a discussion, but I don't know. I didn't know what happened. I just knew that he walked out really fast, and we loved the film. So I think it really has to do with how he wanted to be perceived at a young age. And then also, you know, what makes him a great actor is his sensitivity. So if he wants to be seen in a certain way, or if he doesn't, I think at a young age, you know, everyone was going, do these teen films. And I understand, like, I've had teen films come to me and I wasn't crazy about some of them and I had to say no. But in this case, he trusted Savage to do this. But Savage adored John, adored him. And John's character was essentially Savage. I mean, essentially, like, it was, so he wouldn't have done anything that was disrespectful. He did it because he knew he was endearing. I mean, I'm sorry, John's endearing in the film. John is lovable. We are John when we watch this film. You know, we are Mr. Cusack, like, just, we are lame. We're lame. So, but here's what happens. So I go to all these conventions and people are like, what's going on with John? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what happened. I mean, so I read things in magazines or paper or whatever about how, you know, what happened with him and Savage. But remember, you know, you're not there. Sure. You know, the press is going to pull it in one direction or the other. And I did a convention a couple of years ago before the pandemic hit. And I got with John alone and I said, John, you have to help me. I have people coming to me all the time asking about you and how you feel about this film. Cut to this moment, right? Like, what about John? And he said to me, Diane, I don't have anything against the film. I think it's a good film. I have no problem with it. You know, it's just not my, you know, it's not my style of film. It's not my, you know, personal choice. So here's an example. When I read Better Off Dead script, that's a movie I would have seen as Diane, but it's not a movie he would have seen. And I think that's really what the difference was. But now he is warming up to it. And so, like, there was a time where he wouldn't sign anything and now he's signing it. And I really think he's just starting to see, he's constantly amazed that people love the film. He's like, you really love this film. You like it, huh? So he's coming from a different perspective. And I think that he's going to, I think hopefully, I mean, my dream is that we do a Q&A together, that we get together with it. I really just feel like I wish that we could do that. And I even said to him when I saw him, I said, John, we should do a movie together because I think people would go crazy, but who knows, right? I put in my $2, my 2 cents.
Yeah.
$2.
Well,
yes.
you kind of alluded to this, but you know, that this is a very autobiographical piece for Savage Steve Holland. What was he like as a director in fleshing out that vision?
Oh, he's the best. I again was so lucky. It was his first film that he directed, and he wrote and directed another writer director. See, there's an example. Lovely. He knew his work. He was 24. That's young. Okay. I think he was the youngest director ever to direct. They knew they couldn't hire someone else to do that. You know, I mean, no one else could have directed Better Off Dead. Nobody. But because he was so young, he hired really interesting people and actors who had a lot of experience around him. And so when we were shooting, there were times where he'd be like, oh, we would just start to improvise and he would roll. And it wasn't like he said to improvise. I think it was just more like he respected improvisation and he understood like, oh, we can take the character and embellish it, so he gave the structure of things and we stayed to the script, but yet we added things like the Jell-O scene. Like, okay, like, Ricky passing the Jell-O to me and I'm like, what is happening? And then looking over and Curtis is snorting it and just killer. I mean, dying. Like, I can't tell you how many of them we broke, face, and the crew was like going like, oh, they had to turn away because they were going to laugh loud. It's just, and again, why is this so important? It's because the audience, when you watch this film, how can you watch it more than once? It's because the humor of Savage and the visual and the audio can be rewatched over and over again. It is still funny to this day. And people say they watch it every Christmas. People watch it every Valentine's Day. It's one of those films you can watch over and over. And I'm excited that people can pass it to the next generation. That makes me really happy because we're in TikTok world where things go really fast. So I'm happy that people pass it on to their kids.
Were you surprised later? Because it did not do well at the box office. And then years later, it started getting this like resurgence popularity. Now it's like we said today, it's really like a huge cult favorite now today. So were you surprised like years after you do something that all of a sudden it's like this popular film?
Yes, I was extremely shocked that it was recently streaming. Like it was in the top 5 streaming on, I don't know what network. I hate to say it, but it was on something, Hulu's network, Netflix. I don't know. It was in the top 5. Or whenever I make a post about Better Off Dead and some, a photo or something going on, it goes on and on. Like people pass it on like a word of mouth. I did not. They did get terrible reviews. People didn't get it, but at the same time, also, it was competing with very serious films. And so I think when people had I always say you have like your $5 or whatever, went $5 people, you would go see the movie and you would put your $5 towards a movie and you had to pick between something that maybe had some, was in contention for an Oscar or Better Off Dead, you're going to try to put it towards something you think will be more popular, I guess, or I don't know. So the reviews mattered a lot during that time because people were really, critics were really saying, where do you want to spend your money? But when it hit the college world, college students were like, it went to VHS. That was the big change. When it went to that, college students were thinking, I don't want to watch something heavy duty. I just had a week of school. It was exhausting. I want to watch something fun. I want to watch something that I can hang with my friends and watch, or my girlfriend. Can we just find something funny? And I think that's really where it hit, and it hit hard. I mean, people went crazy. And even, Curtis Armstrong and Amanda, we're still friends to this day. All of us, we, you just, look at each other like, this is amazing that it was so popular. And it is still, we're even talking about it right now. Yeah. I mean, how is that a thing? How is that possible? It's like what, 50 years later or what? Maybe I'm aging, but whatever. I'm trying, well, how old am I? But seriously, wow. 40 years later, I'll go 40.
Yeah.
Which is just absolutely fantastic. So now we have to talk about Bill and Ted, which is such an iconic 80s movie. How did you get involved in that?
Most triumphant of you to ask. I went for the audition for Bill and Ted's, and which was really fun for me. Also, I had been doing I guess a lot of serious things I'd been doing. I had done horror. So here I get this, again, upbeat, fun film, which was not something you would normally cast me in. Okay. I thought when I got the script that I was being auditioned for Joan of Arc because she was French. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm getting another French role and I'll go for it. Well, I didn't realize when I saw the script, because she's through the entire script, Joan of Arc, but there's no dialogue for her. I didn't even know that. So what they did is they had me come in for Missy. And so they gave me the sides to read for Missy, but I was like, well, you're going to have me play. I'm going to go for Joan. Like, so in my head, I'm thinking they don't see, I should maybe, I don't know if they Better Off Dead was out, but I don't know. In my head, I thought I'm going for the French girl. And I get there, and I guess they had known that they were going to have Jane Wiedlin in the role. So when I got there, I auditioned with Missy's dialogue, and they went, I think it was the director, Steve Herrick, and I think the writers I think were there as well. And they were like looking at me and going, well, we don't want we're not going to have you play the French girl, but can you do an English dialect? And I said, well, of course I can do an English dialect, and I would love to, I can totally play this character, and, it's awfully, easy if you, work on it, and there's no problem, and blah, blah, blah. And then they said, well, would you want to play a princess? And I was like, I didn't even remember the princess in the script originally because I was focusing on Joan of Arc. So I was like, are there princesses? Oh, sure. I would totally play a princess. So they said, so I started doing that dialect, and they started to laugh again. And they were like, oh yeah, that would be really cool. And like, all of a sudden I think they lit up, and I was like, oh, and they had me read the dialogue from the princess, but the princesses, it was in the script, Princess Elizabeth and Princess Joanna, but they were as a couple. So I didn't see that role. And then when they offered it to me, I was like, oh, okay, sure. And it was so quick. I think they offered it to me pretty quick. And I didn't even know who the other princess was. I was just like, all right. So what was fascinating about it is in the script, it said Princess Elizabeth. But when we did the film, the credits, somebody put me as Princess Joanna, which it's because the guys never say Princess Elizabeth or Joanna. They just call us the babes. Right. So here I'm thinking the person who's doing the credits is going, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, okay. Like, because they don't know, they never got the script. So, and I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, I guess, all right, fine, for the sake of the fans, when I sign autographs, I'll just write Princess Joanna because I don't want to mess them up because it says it in the credits. And then of course they did it Bill and Ted's 2. And then they, it was Princess. So I don't even know if they ever say Princess Elizabeth until the third one. Does anyone know? Like, that's the thing. Let me know if they ever said Princess Elizabeth in the second film, because the first one, there was no name. Anyway. So
well, Makey, did you get this sense? I mean, could you at all see that it's going to become like this huge iconic film while doing it?
Well, now here's the weird part. Okay, so we all loved the film, and we thought, and Keanu was, we heard, up and coming. That's what it was. Keanu's up and coming. I had not seen any of his work, but he was the person who was definitely like, we knew that it was. We knew that people were going to like him. Right. And I, of course, I had to kiss him, which was really difficult. It's hard. As an actor, you don't always get to do the things that you want to. Sometimes you have to hold it together and kiss someone, So it was, we had to do it over and over again because I, of course, kept getting it wrong. So anyway, but no, he is a lovely guy, and we had really a lot of fun working together. And he's when we did the film, we also all had a great affection for George Carlin. So to us, we thought this should be a good film, and we were shocked when it didn't come out. we did it in 1987 and it didn't come out until 1989. And we kept saying, whatever happened to that film? Whatever happened to that film? I remember contacting the studio, or the production company and saying, what's going on with it? So didn't hear anything for a while. And then all of a sudden we heard it was out. And also, I don't think it got good reviews either. But at the same time, I don't know, we felt it was a harmless film. Why wouldn't somebody like this film? And then when it grew in popularity, we were like, oh, just it's such a grateful feeling when you as a actor read a film and you see something in it. And when people don't, and you go, oh man, I wish they did. And then eventually they do. What a great feeling. You go, oh, good. They got it. So I think it just had to grow into its own. And my favorite part about Bill and Ted's is that people show it as a film in high school. Like teachers show the film in high school. I'm like, point. That's like, how great is that? How great. And then they're like, like I see these, young guys and they're like, you're the princess. Oh, wow. I was like,
well, you mentioned George briefly, but what was he like to work with?
Oh, a darling, sweet man. I mean, shocking that his stage routine was so rough and brilliant. That was his persona on stage, but in real life, he was so sweet and so genteel. And I think, he was probably nervous too, because acting is very different. When you're a comedian, you are there to speak the truth. You just see, we get to hear your inner dialogue. We get to hear our inner thoughts that we wouldn't even dare to say. When you're an actor, you're not saying what you think, you're saying what the role says. So he had to become Rufus. And Rufus was very genteel and very, so maybe it was part of certainly he was that way when we met him, but maybe it was also part of his character, that he was allowing that character to, be his person when we met him, off screen. But he was wonderful. And I feel really fortunate to have worked with him. I've been fortunate to work with a lot of actors. Very fortunate.
Were you asked at all to do Bogus Journey or Face the Music? Because I was annoyed that you were not in Face the Music when it came out.
I send you a kiss for that one. Oh gosh, that was hard. That was hard. Bogus. We auditioned for our own part. We auditioned for our own role.
Good grief.
I would love to talk to Steve Herrick about that. He is disappeared. I just would love to have known what the truth was. I mean, they say it's very strange. They say it's a schedule. It was a scheduling problem. I think it was not. It could have. It was very different. I don't know. Very strange. And then Face the Music, we really tried to get. Kimberly and I really tried to let them know we were available. We really said, look, we will fly out on our own dime. I know you're flying, you're shooting here. We said, if you want us to do a cameo of some sort. And we got no. And I really will say this. I don't understand, everyone blames the directors on these things. Oh, they want to go another way and blah, blah, blah. And I just have to say it is most non-triumphant. Most non-triumphant for the fans. Right?
I agree 100%. Yes.
Most bogus. And that's all I'll leave it at, because as a princess, I'm not going to go down that.
Fans were disappointed. I think fans in general were disappointed that you weren't in it. So
why? Again, those remakes are very much about the previous movie and the past and present, and we love that, the little nods. We love when people show up in those films, but I also have to say that I thought the third film was going to be focusing on our kids.
Mhm.
And this is just a very cool thing that happened. My daughter, Olivia De Laurentiis, auditioned to play my own daughter in the film. They brought her in. And even though she doesn't have the look of Keanu, it would have been she does comedy. And it would have been an amazing thing for the fans to have her play our daughter. It would have just been a whole other way to go. And
a nice Easter egg.
It would have been a great Easter egg. Yeah. So that's a nice behind the scenes fantasy.
Another case of directors screwing up things. Hollywood screwing up things.
You are most excellent for saying that. Thank you very much.
Let's talk about your memoir, The Excellent Adventures of the Last American French Exchange Babe of the 80s, and the two follow-ups, Curly and Comedy. What made you decide to write them?
The first book I did because I wanted it. I did it because I always wanted people to get my version of my life as opposed to somebody writing about me. People always get things wrong. I mean, even if it's, they can't help it. They're not you. They don't know. So the first thing I wanted to do was tell people what my life was like. And really, it was for other actors. It really was an idea of, well, it was for fans, but more so like the idea of like, how do you go from not having anything in the business to being a movie star? How does that happen? So I wrote that book really to show people how that happened, what my life was like, not get into it too deep, but also give them an idea of the process and what it takes. And the other thing was, I always wanted to give a primary source to people. Again, like, you're going to hear it from my words and my mouth and the way I speak. And I wrote it as if I was in the 80s. I mean, my vernacular, like, you know, I didn't want to write it like an adult. Like, I remember when I was a child and, you know, all these things happened to me. No, I wrote it as if I was experiencing it. So that was why I wrote the first one. And I thought that was it. I just thought, okay, that's all I'm going to write. And I didn't even know if anyone was going to buy it. And frankly, my first copies of it are hardbound in color. And I only sold maybe either 50 or 100 of them, maybe 50, I don't know. And so those people who went to conventions and bought them have collector's items. I actually bound those books myself. Like, I made them because I thought, well, are people even going to be interested? Well, when I sold out, that's when I went, okay, I guess I'll try to publish this now. And so I published them so that people could then, you know, get them at conventions if they were interested. So that was one thing. So that's called The Excellent Adventure, blah, 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 right? And I made that really long title because I wanted people to know that I wasn't taking, you laugh when you say the title, as you should. It's an upbeat, fun 80s book that will take you back in time. Then I really want people to have a good time reading it. Then the second book I wrote, that came as a surprise because what happened was, as I was putting stuff away and going through my memorabilia, I realized that I had not finished my story, and that one of the things I didn't discuss and I didn't share, and was in all of my bios. Like, when I did these films, they give you bios and they ask about what you think. And all of them, I was saying how I couldn't get work in a lead in a film until I let my hair go curly. And so I started researching it and going back, and I said, oh my gosh, like Last American Virgin, that film kickstarted everything. So my second book focuses on Virgin, and focuses on my hair being the first curly haired. I was the first teen girl with curly hair that was considered like pretty. Like, before that, curly hair as an adult was funny. You know, you had Lucille Ball and, you know, Bernadette Peters. But if you had curly hair as a young girl, it was death. I mean, you were straightening it. You hated your hair. You would not go out with curly hair. It was considered frizzy, bushy. So Virgin was the first film that a guy went, she's got curly hair. She's my dream girl. Amazing. Like, that was not it was not a thing. So I wrote that book, and I highly recommend, if you love Last American Virgin, you will not be disappointed. It is, I have things in it that are nowhere to be seen, like, and information that cannot be found anywhere. So Last American Virgin, that book is called The Excellent Curls of the Last American Virgin, blah, 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 blah. But this now, I thought, okay, I'm done. I'm not writing anymore. Then I went to conventions, signing conventions. I've been doing them for a while. Love them. Love meeting people all over the country. So exciting. And but I also, again, feel like, oh, you're coming to see me. Here, look, there's a coat you can put on. It's like, yeah, I'm me. But look, there's a coat. This is really cool. Being somebody who loves the 80s, and I actually got to keep the coat from Better Off Dead.
Oh, awesome.
Which is phenomenal, which is like, how is that even a thing? How did I get it? I talk about that in the book. But I thought, I'm going to have my people who I'm at the conventions with wear it, and we'll take pictures together. They can wear it. I can wear it. And people loved wearing it. And so one day this guy says to me, hey, you should write a book about that. Like, or you should put people in a book who are all wearing the coat. And that did it. I went, oh, wow, that is a brilliant idea. I'm going to write the Better Off Dead book that everybody wanted, but we never got the special features on. Like, I'm going to put all the information that I have and I know about it and put it in a book. So I spent 2 years writing this book, and this was different than my other books, because my other ones were more about like my life. So I knew about it, but this one was responsibility. This one was, I have to get everything right. I have to make sure that I get obviously all the names right, who did what right. I want to do chapters. I make the book also about, like, if I was going to want to know about Better Off Dead, how would I be presented? And so I loved all the characters. So I made chapters on each of the characters, because in my eye, we are all one of those characters. Like, you identify with somebody in there. So I thought that was really important. And so the book is made from love. And I was writing it, and I told Savage Steve Holland, I'm like, I'm writing this book. Would you like to contribute? Or, maybe just even a little blurb. He went crazy. He was like, Diane, oh my gosh, of course. I'm like, and he sent me like 30 pages of information that I didn't even know. So this is a highly unusual book. And I did interviews. Whoever I could get interviews with, I did. So it's fascinating when you look at this book, I put my heart into it. I contacted people. I put the word out. I even had a Facebook fan connect me with a musician on Facebook. And then we did a FaceTime from England to me in California on some of the music in the film. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I connected with Rupert Hines' wife, his widow, and we became friends. And so many things happened. When you see this book, all I can tell you is it's magnifique. It kicks ass. Well, wrong movie before. Kick ass.
Will there be? You have 3 now. You still have a lot of very popular films. Will there be a 4th book?
I thought about that. I actually made an Amityville book, but it's only. I was curious. Yeah, an Amityville book is my Amityville one is. I made a picture book for me, like as a memory. So, like, I made an Amityville book that I have I would just need to do the writing on it, but I have all the photos, which is quite phenomenal. And actually that links with Amityville Murders, which was a film that was done based on Amityville 2: The Possession. That film, a young boy saw it, and his name is Dan Ferrans. And so he saw the film when he was a kid, and then he wrote a new movie in, I think it was 2006 17 we shot it. But that's called Amityville Murders. Anyway, but Amityville has also been a big thing in my life. And but then also a Bill and Ted book would be interesting. But I have a lot to say. So I will probably be writing more books, but it's has to be something that has meaning. Right now, I am most focused on Bill and Ted, Last American, no, sorry, there's too many movies. I am focused on Better Off Dead because I'm going to be going to SCAD in like a few days, 15 days or so. SCAD is having a Better Off Dead reunion.
Oh, nice.
And it is going to be huge. And there's so many cool things. They're bringing the original car in from the film. So it is going to be très magnifique, and you will see many people. So if SCAD is a school, a art school, college in Georgia, Savannah, Georgia. So check it out. Go and check them out, SCAD. Yes.
Well, we also want to be able to provide links and let people know where fans can order your books and follow you on social media. So can you tell us how that they can do that?
Okay, so my books you can get on Amazon because it's just easier and you can get the book. And then if you buy my book, see, here's the thing. If you buy my book and you bring it to a convention, I will sign it for free. Okay. Oh. So that's kind of a nice thing. If you don't want to buy the book, you can buy it at wherever I do conventions. And then I just sign it there and I have my pictures and all that stuff. So that's that. You can also get things on my website, dianefranklin.com. But if you want to follow me on social media, and that's the best thing to do in terms of knowing where I'm going to be, what conventions, and also what movies. I'm still working. I have a movie that's going to come out. I have shorts I'm doing. So if you want to keep up with me, my Twitter is Diane Franklin 80. And my Facebook is official Diane Franklin, says the word official. Because my other Facebook is filled. And so everyone's trying to get on it. And I have like 1,000 people on the waiting list. I'm like, nah, I can't. Sorry, people are not leaving. So I have another one. It's called the official one, which please just join it. I give all my information there as well. And Instagram, actress Diane Franklin on Instagram. That's me. So if you do that, you will be pleasantly surprised. I have such cool stuff on it. I have old photos and nostalgia. I mean, you follow it, right, Jonathan? So
yes.
What do you think of it?
I said I love it, but told you at the beginning, I love it. I love your content. You put out a lot of fun things for me.
Yay, good. Yes. I keep it hot.
Well, we want to ask,
look, this is what? Is this my 80s babe? Check it out. Yes. So I keep it 80s babe.
Sure. How often do you go back and revisit the old films, and what goes through your mind when you do?
I don't know. When we do Q&As, like, they'll play them. But I will say that I really, every time I see it, I come away with something new and different because I watch it with the audience. And I love audiences' questions. And I really feel like films are about the audience. You would not be interviewing me today without the fans of these films. And the fact that you go back and revisit them means that they are valuable. And if they go from generation to generation, that means the message is valuable, or the person is valuable, So I really feel like I love being an actress. I love playing different characters. And I love that today people can be boutique with it. Like some people can go, I like this kind of horror and I like this kind of comedy, and we can do the niche of it. But what the advantage is that means that the films I've been in are going to be watched again. And that's a great compliment.
Well, a few months ago, you released the video, the Coat Song, on your YouTube channel. Now, how much fun was that to do?
All right. So here's what happened. I'm a teacher. I teach drama, and I have students, and I work with they're dancers. And I thought, okay, like, how Better Off Dead has such deep meaning to me. And I thought, how can I give these kids a chance to shine? But also, it was originally I did it because I came out with the book. I wanted to do a special promotion for the book. And I thought, a lot of times a book comes out and that's it. And then you don't hear about it. Like, it's a big build up, and then comes out. And I said, well, no, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to have the book come out. I'm not doing this big build up. I'm telling people about it. But for the whole year, I'm going to do things that make it stand out, like make it fun. So that was the reason why I did that song, because I thought, I'm going to write a song based on the coat, because the coat is the thing that brought everybody together in the conventions and in my book. So I thought, I'm just, again, focus on the coat, right? And so I thought, well, I'm going to write the song. I'm going to do the music. And as far as the melody, and I produced it with my son. He did the producing and he did a great job, and he plays the guitar and all that stuff. But it was just more of a labor of love that we did together. So to me, I thought, it doesn't matter how many people listen to it or watch it. It's just, it had to be done. I just had to put it out there. Certain things I do and I go, you know what? Doesn't matter how many people watch it or like it. I'm doing it because it has to be done. The coat and the book, and it just sort of came together. And it's an indication of my personality too. I'm like, you know what? Stop putting, restraints on yourself. Just be you and be creative. Not just me, but like, it puts out a message to people. Be free. Be free and be yourself and be creative.
It's a fun video. It really is.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Some people are going to like it, some people not, but that doesn't matter. It should make you, that's the point. The point is that you walk away feeling good.
And by the way, your kids do have a great name for doing film, for being involved.
Yeah, right?
Yes. De Laurentiis. So,
yes. De Laurentiis, yeah. So, people don't mess with you, De Laurentiis. Yeah, it's a great name. And my daughter, she does comedy under Olivia De Laurentiis, and she does it with her comedy partner. They go on by Sid and Olivia. So if you're going to follow her, follow Sid and Olivia on TikTok.
And so what are you working on next?
Oh, gosh. All right. So I'm actually doing a part in a film next Saturday. I have a role. I'm playing in a film. I can't divulge anything, but I'm doing that. I have a film that I did, a really cool kind of art film that's coming out, I think, next October, called Pareidolia. Very scary. And what I think is really interesting is you're going to see me in parts that you've never seen me play these roles before. And that's what attracts me to films. I really am attracted to character, whether big or small. And I just also would, I don't know, I thought at a certain point that I was not going to do any more acting, but the way things, if I like something, I do it, and I just kind of go with what's in the moment.
Good.
Well, so I'm full of surprises.
Yeah, that's fantastic. But let's see, you already mentioned one, but do you have any other conventions coming up?
And hopefully in Florida.
Yes. Okay. What did you say?
Hopefully in Florida.
Oh, you are interesting. Well, I just signed a contract. I can't say anything, but yes, I'm going to Florida.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Next year, like beginning of the year. Okay. So next year, beginning of the year. Oh, that's why follow me on social media. When I can announce it, I'm announcing. All right. But yeah, I'm going to be coming to Florida. And it's going to be big. It's going to be a big convention.
Awesome. Very much look forward to that.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned also Amityville. Where you did Amityville, and you recently did the Amityville Murders, where you kind of basically played your own mother, which must have been surreal.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes.
So
and I can't wait till somebody does a mashup of the two.
It's awesome to me that you did that. Oh, fantastic. I watched those as well. But now I keep reading about a proposed Last American Virgin remake or others. would you be up for it being involved in some capacity?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, wonderful. Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting because I even in my head have thought maybe I would write a script, because it's like, already, come on, people, let's do this. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think it would make a really good 24 or 25 film,
Okay.
because of like the sexting. Like, we have a whole different world now. Like, but it would have the same ending. Okay, so just no, or it would have alternate endings, right? Different, like you could see the ending that you wanted. We'd shoot them all.
You're breaking my heart. Well, Diane, thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure to get to talk to you. I was really looking forward to this. Like I said, big fan of yours for a long time, and it was such a thrill to get to meet you.
So nice.
So
again,
well,
I want to
this has been yes. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, merci buckets.
Well, this has been Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Ike Eisenmann. And again, a very special thanks to Diane Franklin. And please subscribe.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.